Welcome to the Teachers on Fire podcast, where 21st century educators come to share, learn, and be inspired. We believe in the growth mindset, creativity, communication, critical thinking, collaboration, and strategic uses of education technology. Our mission is to share news and views from teachers who are crushing it in the classroom and making a difference for learners everywhere. I'm your host, Tim Cavey. Let's jump into today's episode. Today I'm speaking with Joy Kirr. Joy is a 7th grade ELA teacher and Genius Hour advocate in Elk Grove, Illinois. She writes at geniushour.blogspot.com and in 2017 published Shift This, How to Implement Gradual Changes for Massive Impact in Your Classroom. Joy, thanks so much for coming on the show today. Are you ready to talk education?
Sure, Tim. That's what we live for.
Absolutely. Well, absolutely. That's our core mission. So why don't you start by telling us about your current education situation?
Okay, I am in Arlington Heights, Illinois. It's a suburb of Chicago. We're right by O'Hare. And I'm at Thomas Middle School. I'm currently an English language arts teacher for 7th graders. So I have reading and writing in an 80-minute block, and I have 3 of those classes.
We're going to get into your book more and into some of your passions, Joy, but I'm going to start at a low moment. Tell us about some adversity that you've faced somewhere in your education career, and then, importantly, how you overcame it.
Do any of us go unscathed?
Oh, no.
Really? So the last time I had a parent mad at me, my husband said, ask your principal, ask him if anybody, and he says, nope, everybody gets it. So this one was bad. It was on my 40th birthday. And I had a parent that was mad at me for many reasons since open house because my child's scores went down. How can you bring them up? And this was September. And I'm like, well, let's give it a chance.
Right.
So she was mad pretty much all year. By January rolled around and she said to me in front of my principal that Genius Hour is crazy. All the parents think so. You should do more PR.
Ooh.
So he let me go right then. He's like, you can leave, and then he talked to her for the rest of the time. I went home and I cried, and my husband, Bob, asked me, what are you going to do about it? And so I looked up resources for curating my research and putting it online for parents to see. And I found live binders, and I had been collecting the research on Evernote, but it was very private and it was just mine, So it was time to put it out there. So I took all my reasons as to why I was doing Genius Hour because she gave me something to think about, am I doing it right? Should I be doing this? Is this the right thing to do? And then I put it on that behemoth that we now know as the Genius Hour Live Binder. Okay. And my favorite part of it then was that teachers started using it. So now so very many teachers are trying student-directed learning that it's become pretty commonplace in schools.
Sure.
So it's not so crazy anymore.
Right.
But yeah, that hurt. That was a punch to the gut.
That extra line about, did she say all the parents think so?
And all the parents think so. Which, they are pretty connected at my school. Those parents talk.
That's devastating.
So,
and when one parent gives you that kind of a vote, that hurts enough. I mean, that can
it hurt.
That can ruin my sleep for like 2 or 3 days. So
at least. It'll take like 2 weeks. Come on. And then I wrote a blog post right after that. I've been waiting to use this quote in my blog. It was from Moneyball, the movie Moneyball.
Yeah.
And it was, the first one through the wall always gets bloody. And I'm like, that's it. Because I'm the first one to try it. I'm the first one to do it. And I hadn't communicated with parents about it. I'd just gone and done it. So it was a good learning experience.
Oh, I love that quote. And I'm just, was that a Brad Pitt moment or?
I'm not sure who it was, but I wrote it down. I'm like, I got to use that someday. And it was perfect because it's true. And ever since then, I've communicated with the parents. It was a good lesson. And I had another child of hers, 3 years later, and she came in for open house. And the first thing I did was say, thank you. You've helped me communicate with parents. And she's like, well, at least it did something. And that was it. That's all she said to me all year. So that was good.
Yeah. I like that. Well, it's funny that we're talking about this because just lately I've been studying about this idea of bringing change to an institution and sort of the process of gaining social license and building consensus across a whole community. And it does take the activists, the revolutionaries at the fringes to sort of just do crazy stuff while everyone else watches and sort of decide, the rest of your staff, maybe your colleagues, they're all kind of watching curiously. And so it does take those pioneers to bring about institutional change. So
you've got to read Robert Evans's book, The the something of school change. The shoot, I'm looking on my shelves right now and I can't see it, but it's about school change, and it's so very detailed and intricate about all the ways that people resist change and why they do. And it does bring about, wow, we are really running up against a hard wall if we're going to think we're going to change the institution.
Right.
But we got to keep thinking it. We got to keep trying it.
Keep going forward.
The human side of school change. That's it. That's the book.
Joy, moving on, what is it that excites you about education today? I think I know what you might say, but yeah, take this in any, what's been your latest passion?
I like it when the kids challenge me, you know, and a lot of the teachers don't, but I take it as a challenge. And I think, okay, why am I doing this? And is this relevant? And could we change it the way you want to change it? And it helps me teach better. So I know that the kids are changing. I know that some of them are, it feels like they're becoming more disrespectful, and it feels like the parents aren't buying in as well. But I can take that as a challenge instead of as disrespect. You know, I can take that as, okay, this is going to help me be a better educator.
You're taking me right back to one of my first years of teaching when a girl piped up right as I was passing out some packet of photocopied handouts, I'm sure. And it was like, why are we doing this? And I caught, I was totally caught in that moment. But you're right. I mean, that's such a healthy question. It's hard to answer it right there in the moment, right? It can be
unless you really know why you're doing it. So the more they ask you why, the better prepared you are, and the more relevant things are becoming.
Oh, exactly.
You know, you do really look at it with that lens.
Yeah. Yeah. And that connects with the whole idea of clear learning intentions, you know, making the destination clear for all parties, yourself first of all. And you're reminding me too of another guest, Adam Moeller, on the podcast, who spoke about the very same thing. And I think that is such a good question. And I like that attitude of, bring it on, students, not in a disrespectful way, like you said, but help me.
Right. We can have the discussion. That's a great question, you know? Yeah. And let me get back to you on that if you don't know it yet, you know?
Exactly. Yeah.
I'll get back to you.
Sometimes that's a fair
and
answer.
Sometimes, well, the district is making me do this.
Yeah.
Sorry.
not the most pedagogically sound answer, but yeah, reality is
right.
Yeah. Joy, last year you published this book. So exciting. It's called Shift This, How to Implement Gradual Changes for Massive Impact in Your Classroom. So tell us about the heart and the main message of the book and why you wrote it.
All right. Well, some teachers think that handing over an hour each week to students for something like student-directed learning, it's just too much. You know, the logistics are too much. They have a hard time letting go of control. And then some teachers that do jump in think that 1 hour a week is plenty. Especially content area teachers that are in the secondary level of education like me, you know, like, oh, well, that's enough. You know, 1 hour is plenty. But I like to tell people that this hour of learning what the students want to learn is only the beginning. I had to write about all the things that Genius Hour did for me and for my students. And I think that once you implement student-based learning, your whole outlook changes. You know, you realize that the relationships you build with students make all the difference. And you begin changing the rest of your week to match up more with what Genius Hour provides, you know, that student choice, the voice, and the relevance to their education, like we were just talking about. And it was such a game changer for me. It really made me notice how valuable the students were to our learning. And I wouldn't recognize how I used to teach prior to implementing student-directed learning.
Wow.
You know, and the name of it came, well, because we were playing with names, like you said, about Teachers on Fire. But this came because I bike. And there's that light bulb moment when you have a favorite gear you ride your bicycle in every day when you're first starting to really get into biking. And in every instance, you love this gear. But then you encounter a massive hill. You know, if you don't shift your gears, you're never going to make it up that hill. Or it's going to be a grind, or your thighs are going to be on fire. So Shift This is about making those small steps, those little things that teachers can do to make school better for our young learners.
Love it. Now, help me on some vocabulary here, Joy. You're using the language of student-based learning. I'm hearing a lot about inquiry-based learning. Is there a difference between the two?
You know, I think it depends on who you talk to and what their goals are. So I think I stick mostly with student-directed learning where the student drives it. You know, they're the ones that come up with the question or the problem, and then they go from there. But you can have inquiry-based learning be student-directed, or you can have it be just from that curriculum, especially for science. What do you want to know about magnetism, which is what we're studying for the next 2 weeks? Things like that. You can start with the classroom content first and branch out from there. And then, of course, you've got the PBL, the project-based learning or passion-based learning or product. It's like, oh my goodness, so many terms. So I think I'm liking student-directed learning better and better, because I think that says what it is. The students are directing their learning.
Thank you. That is really helpful. Moving on, Joy, I love to hear from educators. What else are you into outside of the classroom? What is sort of lighting your own fire? Another area of learning outside of the education space?
That's hard because it's it's all about education for me. I don't have children of my own, and I feel like I'm getting older and older. So I was thinking of this question. I thought soaking up what life has to offer, and saying why not to things instead of why, just saying why not, how could it hurt? Spending time with my husband. And as I get older, I realize that time is going faster. It's every school year is like a blink of an eye now. And I'm going to enjoy it by being outside, walking, biking, driving, and looking around and really seeing things and myriad photos. Like, I can't wait to get back into photography. So the summers are big for that. Meeting new people, finding out their stories, just like you are with the podcast. And there's just not enough time in life. So I'm trying to make the most of every minute. And that helps me in the classroom because then that helps me focus on one student at a time. Like, let's make the most of this minute with you right here. And I do that outside of school so much more now. I feel like I'm more patient as I get older, so I can soak it in.
That's so cool. I love the piece about photography, and there's this whole debate about whether being present in the moment can happen if you have a device. But, I like to say to people, when I'm thinking photography, when I'm looking for that picture, I feel like I'm so much more attentive to the space and the beauty around me. Are you an Instagrammer, Joy, or are you a serious photographer?
I'm an Instagrammer for my students. Like, I'm trying to be a good role model on Instagram for my students, but I have an actual camera.
Nice. Yeah.
And it's a digital camera, but it takes a while to upload to the computer. And then I have a huge lens for distance. So yeah, I feel like I'm more of a photographer than let's use my device and take pictures,
Gotcha.
Yeah. And you see a lot of minute things.
Yeah. Oh, it's endless. It's endless.
Yeah. Right.
We're going to move into some rapid fire recommendations, Joy. So let's start with the place where most of us build a quality PLN. Who would you recommend that we follow on Twitter? And maybe it's someone that we're not familiar with.
Well, my first person I really followed was Cool Cat Teacher, Vicki Davis down in Georgia.
Yes. Yeah.
And then from her, she shares so much. I just started looking at everything she shares and just started following teachers from there. But she is high school ELA, but she does very general things as well.
She is great. And I got to give a shout out to her podcast as well. Just like you said, tremendous source of ideas and info.
Right.
So, yeah. Next, point us to an edtech tool that you currently love using in your classroom or your day-to-day work. And I happen to be in the ELA space as well. So I look forward to hearing your answer to this one.
Well, mine's Google Slides.
Absolutely. Yeah, sure.
And you combine it with Keynote, and you can take your pictures and do so much with the pictures on Keynote and then put them into Google Slides. And just yesterday or the day before, I think it was the day before, I spent all day learning that you can make slides into gifs through Google Slides. And now I've made like 5 different banners for Google Classroom for next year. Like, I'm all ready to go for all the seasons and everything. And it's great because you can make the gifs on Google Classroom banners. I'm like, oh, this is so much fun. So I've just been playing around with Google Slides like crazy.
Oh, that is really cool. I love the collaborative power of Google Slides. And I have not used the GIF functionality. So look forward to playing with that.
Oh my goodness. You just make a bunch of slides in a row and you just change a little bit for each slide. And then you upload it to something called Tall Tweets. Tall Tweets.
Okay.
And it does it for you. Bam, done.
Cool. For the Google Slides fans out there, and you probably know about this already, or you might have another source, but there are some awesome templates at a site called slidescarnival.com. Slidescarnival.com.
Oh, no.
Have you got a little pet source for templates on Google Slides?
No.
Okay.
I've been making my own, but I know you can just go right to the templates on Google Slides. They have added more and more.
Yes, they've gotten a little more expansive, but yeah.
Right. I was just introduced to those at ISTE. I didn't even know about them.
Oh, Awesome.
That's why it's my new favorite edtech tool.
Yeah. Just keeping that momentum alive, right? From the ISTE energy.
Oh, crazy.
Next, Joy, recommend a book, one that you've been reading lately or one of your all-time faves. Now, we've already talked about Shift This. Obviously, that's been on your mind a lot, but is there something else you've been reading lately?
Well, it's not a lately, but it's almost an every other year I read it. So it's called Choice Words by Peter Johnston. And it's 86 pages of just how to speak more precisely and how to use, now see, I can't do it on the spot, but how to use better vocabulary to really make your point. And he'll say little things like, this wasn't even in the book. I had heard about the book through someone saying this. If you say something like, I like your shirt, and then you say, but whatever you say after, it doesn't matter because you have totally negated what you said before. And that's what people will focus on. So little things like that book helps you with. And it has helped me writing emails to parents. It has helped me talking one-on-one with students. It's helped me with my family. It's a great book, Choice Words.
Wow. Okay, cool. And just for fun, Joy, on a kind of a lighter note, you're at the end of the day, you've got no energy left to write your next manuscript or mark papers or read books. So what is it that you're watching on Netflix these days?
I don't have Netflix. Isn't this terrible? My students are like, what? You don't? We just had the grandkids in last week and they got on Netflix. I'm like, how'd you do that on our TV? They're like, oh, you just log in. I'm like, seriously? That is the best. And no, I don't have it. We're not huge movie people. And we try not to watch a lot of things that we get hooked on. Yeah, that's sad.
Hey, good for you. And it means you're using your time wisely.
I do read more. Yeah.
Joy, this has been so much fun. Thank you so much for coming on. I'm deeply indebted and just so grateful for your time. What are the best ways for people to follow you and get to know your content a little bit better?
Twitter is my big one. That's where I learn so much. So I'm at Joy Kirr with an I for Kirr. Instagram for the kids, though, it's Joy Kirr 1. My website is geniushour.blogspot.com. You already mentioned that. And a link to my portfolio and a whole bunch of other stuff is on that website. And then Shift This is on Amazon. It's all over. Like my husband Googles me and he's like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. I'm like, I know, but it's all good stuff. It's not bad stuff.
No longer low profile, right? You're sure.
Right, but it's okay.
Just the first 1 million Google results, but yeah. Well, right. Awesome. Yeah, I enjoyed following you lately at the ISTE week and all that's been going on with the content that you've been putting out there. So thanks so much again, Joy, and enjoy the rest of the summer.
Well, thank you for having me, Tim. I definitely will. You too.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Teachers on Fire, where teachers come to share, learn, and be inspired. Please subscribe to the podcast, leave us a review on iTunes, and follow us on Twitter at Teachers on Fire. I'm your host, Tim Cavey, saying goodbye for now, and we'll catch you next time, right here on the Teachers on Fire podcast.